Smack that.
Bring me some more. That's an old song for you.
Never heard it.
Wait, what?
Smack that. Leave me
On the floor. Smack that. Bring me some more.
Never heard of it.
Bro, when were you born?
97.
That's why I was
My
born.
social security number is...
Don't do that. It's not safe. There's been a shitload of internet phishing stuff on Discord lately.
There has been.
Keep your little Googlers out of there. If somebody sends you a friend request on Discord, don't trust them ever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it always goes back to only add the people you know. Why would you add someone just suddenly?
Well,
you gotta know. I guess you never know.
There was somebody on YouTube who got reached out, and I don't know if I believe the story so much, but on Instagram apparently reached out to him and said, hey, and they were his friend, close friend who they've helped before with stuff. Can you log into this account for me? And I'm like, who, dude? And he did that, and he lost like all. This is somebody with like 1 million subscribers on YouTube, lost his whole Instagram.
Hurts.
I'm like, buddy.
Have we said that my stuff got hacked once? While I was so a long time ago. I'd been streaming for about a year. And I was living at my parents' house for the summer, and I remember someone texted me, one of my streamer buddies texted me and said, hey, your stream is live. And it had like a weird like watermark or something on it. So I knew it wasn't me. They're like, hey, something's going on your stream. And I pulled it up, and they were basically using the Twitch account to promote their stream or their hacking community.
I think you've told me about this.
Yes, they thought I was like some huge dude.
To be fair, you cannot
10,
stream
15,
for like 6 months, get back, and you've got like 26 people.
It's true.
Right away.
I don't know. Doing it for a long time, so I guess that probably helps. But
I don't know. People jump off. They see old Melasior get on Twitch, and they're like, I'm gonna watch that right now. It doesn't,
right? But I ended up getting it back, because they gave it back to me first. But
they're like, yeah, you don't get shit.
Well, yeah, they were trying, and they actually told me ways like I'm being hacked in the future. So that was nice.
I remember this story.
But the other problem was they also hacked my Twitter and stuff, and they DDoSed me at the same time. So I couldn't do this. I couldn't like change my passwords by myself. So I texted a friend of mine, the same person that told me that my stream was on, my passwords, like all my stuff to get into my stuff, to quickly try to change it before they could access it. And they were able to do at least some of my stuff. So that was nice.
I do remember this story. I forget some things as of late. But no, internet safety is very important.
So here's one of the ones. I don't know if you got this one from Discord Academy Moderator.
I have not seen that.
Yeah.
I had
Be careful who contacts you in Discord, people.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't turn a light on. Waffle for a second.
Oh, no, not the light.
We got to get a light, man.
Yeah, we're looking a little washed out right now.
Shine out the top of our little noggins there.
For you audio listeners, it does not matter, but trust me.
I know. You can hear light particles.
True.
The cat just walked in the room. You could tell, right? You could hear the sound of the light
bouncing through their stomach.
But speaking of like internet safety, something similar is like health.
Health safety, yeah.
Health safety. You want to be very, very careful.
You're supposed to get checkups every once in a while. I've not gotten a checkup in years.
You walked in kind of sniffly today.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was just hot weather outside, so the mucus
it is actually disgusting.
Melts your nostrils.
I'm perma-sick this time of year. Wish I had some sort of way to heal it magically.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we were going to record yesterday. I had a sick segue. Yes. I was feeling super exhausted, tired yesterday. Like, man, I could really use someone to cure my status effects with a greater restoration.
We're talking about healing
clerics.
today. I was thinking
not just clerics, I guess. Yeah, but
there's cats all over the screen, everywhere. Mr. Destroy the Exposure Man.
Oh my! Oh yeah, let me turn that off.
Yeah, we're having a fun podcast today. I'll be waffling. So what had happened was we were thinking about episodes of what we want to do, but Pathfinder had the Book of the Dead coming out, and we didn't realize the PDF wasn't going until like the 27th.
Yeah.
So I think it might have locked onto him. So you need to make it wide enough to see me. We are professional podcasters here. Please, hope you enjoy. Yeah, smack that boy up a lot. Yeah, there we go. But this is something I've been thinking about quite a lot lately, especially since there's a few games where I've either considered being a healer, particularly in Pathfinder. Sumi, what are you doing over there? It's fine. You guys like cats.
Who doesn't, right?
And I'm trying to think of a new character that I want to play in my second book of the Abomination Vaults for Pathfinder. As well as just healing in general, because I feel like there's a stigma around it that it's the role you don't want to do in all sorts of mediums.
Yeah, like video games, Overwatch, and whatnot. They always get made fun of.
Specifically Overwatch. Before we dive into it too much, he's Ryan.
He's Braxton. That's a cat.
These are my cats, literally staring you down in the face right now. If you aren't on our YouTube, go over to Dungeon Crawl.
See who blinks first. You're the cat.
There shouldn't be anything over there for her to chew on. I think there will be. But anyways, we're going to talk about healing today. I wanted to dive into even outside of just D&D. First.
I got some general stuff in here, and I did a little Pathfinder digging. I'm not a big Pathfinder guy, but I do like it.
I was going to make fun of you and say, please tell everybody, the people who do not know at home, what is healing in general?
So it's very important. It's how you stay alive. It's how you get past tough encounters. It keeps your hit points if you drop a little bit because you fall on a rock or something. They can drop a nice little healing word for you, do a little battle medicine, whatever, to get you through the day.
Yeah.
But not just that, they also cure status effects. Like if you're petrified.
One of the many terrible side effects of D&D. Paralyzed is terrible.
Yeah. What's another one? I think they can cure some exhaustion. I'm not positive. Yeah. I think they can.
Curses and whatnot too.
Curses. Yeah, they can help get rid of some curses on you. There's a lot of nice things that these healers can do. I think a lot of questions that come up for these things are: do you need a designated healer? Do you need one? That's the biggest party. Or I think can you just get by with some deep pockets and some healing potions? There's some debates back and forth. Also depends on the system you're playing, of course.
Yeah. So for healing, it's often not the most luxurious job, which is kind of exemplified in Final Fantasy XIV when you're queuing up for like being a DPS. Those queue timers are massive because there's so many of you, even despite the number of DPS in a typical event or dungeon is twice that. And if something
goes bad, you're the first one that gets blamed for not healing fast enough. I got cooldowns, dude. There's only so much I can click fast enough.
Oh,
sorry, Ken.
A lot of clicks.
I've been yelled at as a healer in my days.
Yeah. The interesting thing, though, and there's a new class of Final Fantasy they introduced that is more damage mitigation than just healing. So I think a good way to approach it, and it's kind of going to be my point for this whole thing as we continue on, is you might not need just a dedicated healer.
Yeah.
Maybe preventing damage is the same thing as healing it, if you think about it.
Yeah, you got the for example, a bard can do cutting words, can stop someone from hitting you, or can change like I think Grave Cleric can stop natural 20s, critical hits if they can see someone doing it. So there's a few different ways that you don't have to just be a straight up pack all the healing spells into your person. There's a few other options you can do.
It's important.
Very important.
There have been parties that we've had, I feel like, or at least things that I've been in D&D or TTRPGs in general, where there was no healer. And I feel...
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Dungeon Chronicles, I was a cleric, but heal. I did not do many heals.
Yeah.
I could have.
Did I give you guys... Okay, Dungeon Master stuff. Let's say there's nobody in your game that wants to heal because they think it's terribly boring. Does it change how you're approaching stuff?
I think it should. Yes. I think the problem comes into if you're playing a pre-built adventure and that hasn't been thought about. Because I think even at the beginning of some books, they'll say this book is for the typical D&D party, like 4 to 6 adventurers. And I think it assumes at least one of them is packing some healing options.
Yeah.
But to be fair, most classes, even if you're not a healer, like we mentioned before, it will have something that can give a few hit points here and there.
Yeah. What are ways that you help out if the party has like 0 healing?
I would say what you could do is, as a DM, change and balance slightly differently in ways where, like, be more lenient for rests, of course. Short rests, definitely, but obviously you can go back to our short rest episode and you can just give those anyway. But I think you should be even more lenient on those. Have more options to get healing potions. Maybe you could even incentivize a player to get into alchemy. The alchemy section in D&D is not very broad. Other systems, it's definitely better, Pathfinder especially. So you could get into alchemy and make your own healing potions. Or, like I said, give them lots of options to buy their own, give them lots of gold. Because, I mean, to be fair, I'd say give them better than just normal healing potions. 2d4 plus 2 is not a lot. But to be fair, if you do the rules where you can take one as a bonus action,
I was going to say that.
You can do a pretty good job with just giving them a lot of healing potions, and then they can use their bonus action to pop a potion or something.
You got the stereotypical Skyrim situation where you pause combat, freeze time, and you chug a shitload of potions. Can't quite do that.
I can't remember who it was, but I saw a funny video of So there was like an NPC and a player fighting, and then there was just a cut, and the player like had a bunch of new armor on and like was drinking a potion. The guy's like, "Where did you get this stuff?" And then like another cut, and they got more stuff.
That's where Dark Souls comes in. That shit's good. You think like there's no healers in those games. Well, technically there's, but you're a single person for the most part. You've also introduced NPCs.
Yes, NPCs is a good way to do that. It can be add like a DM NPC to the party, which could be tough. But you couldn't even just make an NPC that literally their job is like, hey, I'm not a fighter, I'm just a healer. So you can just mark their spell points and they just use them all for healing if the party needs it. And otherwise, they're just hiding somewhere. But then you could, if you have a smart enemy, then the enemy targets them.
That's when you immediately kill your own help that you gave the party, which would be very interesting. I think the stigma around healing, what we mentioned already, is you're going to be sitting around in a situation where your party's doing these amazing epic things, whacking people left and right, killing, there's blood all over them. They look so cool. And then you sit there and wait until they come and say, I need healing, like a little Genji in Overwatch, please. And that's all you do. And when your turn comes around, you're either just moving, trying to avoid things, not doing any damage, and then just touching and healing somebody. So you're like playing a fourth of the game. But in Dungeons and Dragons, firstly, there are so many classes and characters and subclasses that get some sort of support spell or healing. So there's a way to have a party with no dedicated healers, but people that have healing word.
Paladins.
Paladins, specifically.
Because they not only do healing, but they also have AoE like status effect buff, so they can give you higher DCs for things. It can be very handy to have a paladin in the party. Yeah, so if you guys don't have a single person in the party that does healing, really dig into your available spell slots, invocations, if you're a warlock, or just take the Celestial Warlock, which does a lot of healing on its own. Each class tends to have like a designated healer one. I think there's is it the Circle of Stars Druid? Yeah, Circle of Dreams.
Circle of Dreams is the one that heals. That one is one of my favorites. It's really, really cool. And of course, Bards as well. But what I would even say more so is probably what a DPS in one of these games would say is the dealing damage is healing because you're preventing it in a sense. Or like Risk of Rain. I've been playing a shitload of that game. You typically need to be able to kill things, move fast, and heal in order to have a good run in that game. And it's similar to D&D because you can kind of forego the healing aspect if you have a bunch of shields, damage mitigation, control, etc. And I was doing a lot of research online and found that for you people that like wizards, because they can do everything already, they have some of the best support in D&D and access to really strong spells that just kill things outright. But you don't have to just do healing. But if you do, some of the most damage I've seen in D&D with like the least amount of investment is from our cleric in our game.
Yeah, Inflict Wounds does some work.
I forget that even exists. So it's really cool to flavor it this way. Originally, this player was a character that was kind of a pacifist, didn't do much. We altered it a bit, and they came up and said that they wanted to do some more damage now because they didn't think it was doing too well with like the party. This was like years ago when we first started.
Which goes back to what you're saying. It can feel like you're not doing much of the game.
Yes. That was a conscious decision for roleplay, which was really fun and admirable as well. But it's this weight of that healer who typically doesn't harm people, but pulls out these massive things, whether you're a paladin and you bust out your smite, or you're a cleric and you do the inflict wounds. They just
Spirit Guardians as well.
Yeah, you just walk up to the motherfucker and you're like, boop, you take a ton of damage.
Oh my god, yeah.
I love this approach that at least D&D has done, and it doesn't make any class really a dedicated healer because there's no way to be healing every turn because your players aren't going to be getting hit every turn unless you're doing something super crazy like the Death House and Curse of Strahd.
Yes.
Things like that, which might be kind of fucked. So balancing encounters is super important too, but there's not a drought of options for you within your favorite subclass, within your favorite class, whatever you're trying to do. If you want to make it really interesting, I will recommend looking at that Dream Druid in particular.
Yeah.
Or the Celestial Warlock, and there's a Sorcerer as well. Is it also Celestial?
Divine Soul.
Divine
Sorcerer,
Soul.
Yeah.
So if you're not wanting to do the cleric because you feel it like might be boring to play,
that's the typical healer. Yeah.
It's like I don't want to be healer because I don't want to be a goody two shoes. I don't want to worship some sort of god or religion. I'd much rather be some sort of rogue or dashing character that doesn't care about that sort of thing. Go back to our paladin and have we done a cleric one as well?
We did a cleric. We haven't done a paladin one.
Cleric. Well, we said, do you have to worship a god?
No, you do not. You can worship yourself.
Wait, what? Did we say that?
Yeah, we talked about that.
Worship yourself?
Go back and watch the episode, everybody. It's called something about cleric. I don't know.
Sounds like the self-confidence cleric. But really, you don't have to be pigeonholed into some sort of stereotype here. You're not the battle mercy in the corner that just pockets the Farah. I mean, you can be if you want. I think that is there for you.
The cool thing about what you're saying, though, is each class has its own way to, like with Source, I think the cool way is you could twin spell these healing options that you have. You can hit 2 people at once. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Or the Druid, of course, I think a couple of the other classes have Polymorph as well. But Polymorph, if you think about it, that's a healing spell because you get the HP of the creature you're turning into. Yeah. And they get to do whatever they want, and then whenever they obviously go back down, they go back to the health they already had. So you can just take someone with a base 100 HP, you turn them into an ape with like 150 HP. They got like 350 HP just right off the bat.
I think it would be pretty busted if everybody took not Armor of Agnes, Tomb of Vistus as a Warlock. Granted, it scales with your Warlock level, so everybody playing Warlock might be kind of not fun, or it would be. Maybe you're all serving the group patron. But that adds so much HP. There's a lot of ways to mitigate damage. So don't think that you have to be able to make alchemy or potions with alchemy or just do healing word if you don't want to. Killing something is kind of healing, not to give your DPS an ego boost too much, but I mean, if you kill it before it can hit you or you have really high AC, tanking can really
initiative.
Help. So it's just D&D though. I kind of wanted to talk about Pathfinder because they do it super differently.
Yeah.
There's combat medicine, which allows you to do medicine checks during combat to heal. Every character can do a medicine check to attempt to heal themselves, but there's a time period. You get a debuff where you can't heal yourself again. So
yeah, it's like what, 12 hours, 24 hours?
I don't think it might be like 10. I think it's a rest or short rest. It might be an hour or 10 minutes. It's somewhere around there. I think it might be an hour. I think it is. It's going to be at least like one encounter until you're going to be able to do it again. But I think it's incredibly unique and approaches the problem by saying, hey, we want to make sure that everybody is able to throw bandage on themselves. You know, the Resident Evil, your whole hand is chopped off, throw it on your wrist and pour some goo over it. There's something wacky.
But you could roll poorly and stick your finger into the injury and kill it, which I did to you.
Risky surgery.
I killed you. We brought you back.
And I think that's a feat. That's something you take.
For combat battle medicine?
Not battle medicine, but risky surgery.
I don't know. I did not have risky surgery.
Because there was a person who's playing, just like I was, a Kitsune Oracle of the floaty boy. I don't know. Really this boy is hanging out, man. And it's such an interesting mechanic because it's not just healing. You kind of have to do it out of combat, but we would line up to this doctor who was doing risky surgery. He rolls initially to do damage to us. And you can, for him at least, choose whether he wants to have a higher or lower DC, which gets kind of nervous even more. It's like, I'm going to go for the really big art. If I can just plug this right now, you're fine. But shit gets worse. And you don't get the healing if he doesn't meet the DC. So landing that 20 gives him, I think it's plus 10 to the healing or somewhere around there. And he's not even a healing class. So there's a lot of plug and play, especially in Pathfinder, that I really, really appreciate. You're really not getting shoved into this role. Everybody can do it. The
difference between D&D and Pathfinder, I would say, with D&D, you could probably make do without a person with a lot of healing options. I think Pathfinder, you at least want to have probably one or two that can do like battle medicine during combat, because you never know. It's a very deadly system. But like you're saying, there's a lot of different ways you can get access to healing in combat and healing outside of combat. There's so many different options, while D&D is less so in that department.
They do a little bit of diligence to give classes options, but Pathfinder,
I mean, it's like the option machine. Accessible.
Yeah. Pathfinder in general kind of functions like invocations for warlocks or just warlocks in general. It's a lot of plug and play. So you're never really wanting for an option or something. You can figure it out.
I feel like Pathfinder probably works better if, while D&D, you could probably go into a game without knowing what everyone else's class is and still make it work. Pathfinder probably works better if you're like, I see you're going to be going along in this kind of build. Okay, so if I want to work well with you, I should probably grab these things and bring that. And the other guy's like, okay, so you guys are doing those two things. I'll bring this one that can also heal outside of combat, so you don't have to use all your stuff more outside.
There's a lot more synergy going on with Pathfinder, especially higher levels. And I also learned that a lot of Pathfinder's power is centered around items and picking those up, which is really interesting. I've learned through the Abomination Vaults that we would have sessions where we just left it's a mega dungeon, just left it entirely, went to shop and would get +1 weapons or add some sort of rune to them.
Yeah.
It's very much, your class is really powered up and supplemented by these items that you get. So a healing staff or whatever, throw that to your party if it's in D&D and they can use it. Of course, there's probably the risk that it explodes if they roll like a natural 1, like a lot of items
You're always taking that risk, Yeah.
But I love Pathfinder because D&D, is structured with short rests that make me feel like I'm taking a pretty big risk, or at least how Ryan DMs things. Time goes on, people are moving. It might not be the safest thing. For Pathfinder, you're healing pretty much every single encounter, and it's a more quick pace kind of. Think about your typical strategy games, Pokemon. You're able to heal between battles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the game For the King?
Yes, I have.
I've played it on stream the other day with some of my friends. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's a video game, granted, but you can immediately go to a shop, get a shitload of healing items, and just stock up on it. And video games are faster paced, right? There's menus for you to click through and do things a lot more efficiently. So it makes sense to be able to get items and pop them at a moment's notice. You're playing and going through the game much more quickly. In tabletop RPGs, you can go a long time without really getting a chance to heal. And sometimes it can feel unfair with how many encounters the DM is throwing at you.
Yes.
Versus For the King, it's back to back to back encounters, but you always have a moment to stop and heal. So how do you balance that?
We'll use the video game stuff for like, I'd say Darkest Dungeon's like the opposite, where you just keep going and you never know what's around the next corner. It could be a good spot to take a rest at, or it's a spot where you're going to get destroyed by one final, like you're like on your last leg, you know, you can see the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a stressful thing to figure out how to balance it well as a DM, where you have control over all these variables. I think if you're doing a like Abomination Vaults type thing where it's pre-written, like this room's here, this creature's inside this room. I think being aware of how hurt your party is, or maybe it's a new party that hasn't used healing options often, or doesn't know that they can take a rest here and there. I think constantly reminding them, letting them know, hey guys, it's been a little bit, you guys look pretty rough. Even an NPC can look at them and be like, oh my God, you guys need to just take 5. I'll watch out for you for a minute, please. Giving them options like that, keeping them aware of their options, I think is very important. I think a lot of DMs get into if the players aren't doing it, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. That's when you kind of start butting heads for the DMs.
Maybe
against
if you're in
them.
an experienced group where like that's how you run.
Sure, you're doing like the grim dark options. I can't remember what they're calling the DM's guide, but there's some like tough, gritty realism. I think is in there. Yeah, that's when it can get
like no magic at all.
Yeah, it can get. That's what. There's actually a really interesting Darkest Dungeon, third party like system that they made on top of D&D. It's really cool. But it's really tough. It's one of those systems that you're kind of supposed to die in.
Yeah.
I guess if you're playing a system like that, it's a little more okay to just forgo the balance and say the players can figure it out or they die anyway. So
yeah, I mean, there's never really a moment where I'm not thinking about my health. Resources management, it's a part of that, but it is a big stress. And there's two styles of plays that I've thought about, and the first one is your health is a resource. You got to manage it. Sometimes you're not going to be at your strongest.
Magic style.
Yeah, or your DM has it set up to where you are always
on the brink
at your peak. Yeah. No, at your peak health. Like
you
always have a chance to be as strong and as powerful as your build is. But the difficulty of everything is ramped up. If you've played again Risk of Rain, you can be super strong as hell with 100 items on your back killing you, but you can die in like one hit. So there's that high risk, high reward. I died out of nowhere situation, or kind of the slower drip, and we're getting beaten to a pulp and dying currently as we keep going, trudging through the next step. That gritty realism sort of thing. I don't know which I prefer, and to some extent I enjoy the stress of.
Probably depends on the game, maybe. And maybe you could have both in the same game, different sessions call for different things, maybe.
Yeah. So in our game now, the one that Ryan's running, the light just turned off.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, it still looks okay, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's fine. There's a timer set on the lights in my house. I got a smart home, so it's fun. So for this situation where we're coming up on Big Bad Evil Guy, I'm constantly stressed of, are we going to be on our last leg when we run into them?
Yeah, are we walking into the next room where he's sitting?
It's rough, man. And I don't know how to deal with that, honestly, at the moment, or what we do. Like we've got our healer and we've got a potion. I've got one superior healing I've been holding on for quite some time. And
that's true. You've had that one.
I'm ready to use it, but as a warlock, resource consumption and healing is things that I really, really hold on to. I took the most damage ever in the entire party with
that encounter. I wasn't planning on it being that rough.
Well,
it just so happened that it ended up being.
I think that was one of your most intimidating encounters before we started it, because it's 5 feet of visibility.
Oh, the sand and everything. Yeah.
5 feet of visibility. I think it was difficult terrain, and we couldn't see them at all. Like, of course, 5 feet of visibility. I just said that, but I ended up leading the charge and
he's a tough cookie.
Initiating combat. Did they get a sneak attack?
Because you guys were unaware of their presence.
Surprise round.
Yeah.
And I got bonked by 2 of them. So I
had 4 attacks.
Yeah, I popped my Tomb of Levistus, and I think it was 160 health or 120. I think it was 120. 12th level warlock.
Yeah, something like that.
And they chewed through all of it, and then got me down to I think it was 60 health. Yeah, maybe even lower than that.
Those golems do some damage. It's only a slam attack, everything I've ever used in D&D.
And if I hadn't used that or didn't have it, I think it would have been enough to kill me outright.
It's interesting when you're balancing combat, you're expecting there to be, many different options for the creatures to attack because you're in the spearhead formation and these creatures just walked up. They just attacked what was in front of them.
Yeah.
And so when you prepare things like that, you're not anticipating all the attacks to go to one person. And then when it happens that it does, it can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. And after that, you had a couple of uneasy situations going on, but did you plan? I don't think you planned to do that much damage, but you let us rest and heal and kind of get ourselves back.
Yeah.
I think we can do it anywhere, but that's when healing is just I just got chunked on.
And the scary thing with that is the healer can't see you to heal.
It's fun. So if your healer is just making things trivial, and maybe everybody has healing options, visibility,
blind your healer,
a staff that absorbs healing spells if you're within 10 feet of it.
True, that did happen,
that was nasty. There's a lot of ways for a DM to deal with overhealing in parties, because sometimes there can be a lot, especially if you've thrown a bunch of items at your players in Dungeons and Dragons, because unlike Pathfinder, it's not really balanced around magic items, but they're super fun anyway.
Yeah, they're expecting you to get X amount, whatever, by certain levels, but it's not balanced for that. They don't know what items you're going to get, when and where. And of course, Pathfinder doesn't, but they're still balanced for you because the enemies get much stronger than you do as you go through levels. So they're anticipating you to get these nice items.
Thankfully, healing does more often than not have some sort of scaling per level.
Yeah.
But these items, realistically, you're only going to have 3 ones that you can attune to, powerful ones. Sometimes you're sneaky and you forget you give your players ones that you don't need to attune to. But there's a lot of room to throw healing and help or assistance without resorting to an NPC, because you already got a ton of stuff going on behind the scenes. You don't want to have to control a player character, which I've been interested in doing at some point. I don't know. Healing is in every video game. And I think tabletop, I haven't really seen a bad way that it's been approached. When I honestly think of it's tough to deal with, and you can directly control how much or how little there is.
Now, we never got far enough to need to heal in Cthulhu, did we?
No.
I'm interested to see how that would have gone down.
I don't remember what it is. And there's medicine checks and abilities.
I can't remember either.
There's pharmacy and a bunch of other stuff.
I imagine it comes into play with that, of course. My character was not good at any of that, so I didn't really look at that section. I don't know if any of our characters would, so that might not have been well. The systems that do the more gritty side of that, I think, like a DCC and stuff, Dungeon Crawl Classics, is a little more intense with the healing aspects. Because when you're playing a system like that, you're expecting to probably die at some point.
It's the way I think about Dark Souls.
Yeah.
You can kind of complain that the boss has 10 times your HP, but then you realize if you've leveled up your assets or your healing item that much, your health pool isn't the bar of health that you have. It's the amount of resources and healing that is
you got.
Yeah. So if you think about it, you have about the same amount of HP, but the balance.
It's like I get so upset whenever like an invader, even if it's an NPC invader, pops an Estus flask. It's like,
how dare you?
And then I step away and pop an Estus flask.
No, I can do it. You can't. So it's very much the same with your party, GMs that you're dealing with. So you can take a look at it that way if you're having a hard time hurting your party members, specifically because they have a lot of health or healing. It can be a lot of math to see how many dice worths of healing they could possibly have. And even that has a very large minimum and maximum, especially later in levels. But you can calculate it that way and try to see what their resources are and create an appropriate level of damage for the party. You've got the Dark Souls mechanic of they can only hold so much health
Yeah.
until they need to heal, which is when they need to use the time and resources to do so. But that's where damage mitigation can come in. That's instant uses of barriers and whatnot that can prevent sorts of things. Yeah. So I think going back to that statement, you really don't need to do healing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even recommend having a healer in your party always. I think it's great if you do, and if you enjoy healing, hell yeah, get your butt in there. I'm not recommending.
It's not needed. You don't need to. Because I always see some people are like, "There's no one being a healer in my party. No one wants to be a healer." And some people are like, they'll say that they're trying to guilt someone. They're like, you don't want to. If someone doesn't want to do it, don't force them because they're just not gonna have fun. Period.
Yeah, you can do a little bit of research. I think if you're starting D&D and you're just looking through the player's handbook. You're gonna feel like it's just a simple basic healing. You're gonna look at cleric or paladin and kind of feel
like life domain cleric.
Yeah, like that's it. But if you do a bit of research online, especially, literally just look up how to make healing fun in D&D. Most of what people say is like, "Hey, go damage mitigation." But otherwise, there are a ton of options where you're either gonna be a healer and a tank, or a healer and a DPS, or a healer tank, and like there's so many mixtures. And then in Pathfinder, for example, I'm really interested in turning my summoner that I might be playing in the second book of Abomination Vaults into kind of all like a jack of all trades, and kind of a master of also still healing. But it's never going to be the only thing that I'm doing. Whereas in video games that you play like Overwatch, like you are exclusively doing that.
You can pull out your pistol, but you're not going to do much damage with it.
But that's a really small instance. You're playing for a lot less time, so it makes sense that you're going to specialize in something like that. But I think it's a really important topic because you can really get downtrodden when you're starting to pick characters and you're the last one to the group and you like to synergize.
There's no cleric in the party and everyone's like, "Hey pal, we need one."
Like don't worry about it too much, or reach out to us and get some recommendations. I pull up some builds.
I was thinking if you just have the player's handbook for D&D, I think all of the off healers and support healers, I don't think any of them are in there.
Yeah.
I think if you like, of course, there's Bard's in there. Bard already is kind of like an off support healer, so you could always pick one of those. But like the Divine Soul, that's not in there. Circle of Dreams not in there.
Is that mostly Tosses and Xanathars?
I believe so. Yeah. Like even like Artificer, I have the Alchemist, because that has some cool healing stuff in there. That's obviously not in the player's handbook.
Yeah.
The Celestial Warlock, Way of Mercy Monk, none of those interesting off healers are not in the player's handbook. So if you just got that, I guess it's Cleric.
I love the Way of Mercy Monk, but monks are just. Monks are rough. Yeah. I would recommend playing that if you can figure out a way to make key points a bit easier, or you get a lot of. Are they short rest classes?
Could not tell you.
That sucks. They are the least popular class in D&D, unfortunately. Are they? I think they still are.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that.
At least one that people enjoy. It's one that I think it was in the poll. It said like the one that needed the most work or something.
I'd be really down to play a monk, to be honest. Specifically one that heals. Like it's super, super interesting to me, to be quite honest. But for
it is short rest, yeah.
Yeah. As far as healing goes, make sure you're, in summary, using the short rest, giving your players opportunity to heal, allowing them to shop and get items and potions, or at least some sort of prevention of damage. Just have a healer if you want one. NPC that can heal a cleric, or sometimes it goes away, which can create a really fun sense of dread and value for a character they're trying to protect if you're wanting to make the game a bit more
fun and interesting. They can't follow you for
a
little bit, so you got to protect yourself while you can.
Yeah. Fuck it, do no healing. Have gritty realism and make it really stressful. But balance your counters properly.
Remind people off, because status effects, a lot of people don't know that greater restoration or lesser restoration can clear some of those, and sometimes you need greater restoration versus lesser. So maybe if it's a new player, someone's not aware of that, but their cleric has that or their sorcerer or whatever has that as one of their abilities they can do in their spells. Just maybe have them roll an Arcana check and maybe make the DC 10, something low. Yeah. So like, hey, just by FYI, Braxton's paralyzed, and you can fix that if you use your greater restoration on him.
My biggest recommendation for DMs is to know what subclasses or items that your players can pick on their own offer one or two instances of healing that they can refresh. If everybody in your party has something like that, it gets rid of the situation of everything's on one person. This player knows that, hey, I've got my Tomb of Levistus. I can take care of myself. I'm able to be responsible for my own actions.
Don't prioritize me right now. Heal someone else that might need it.
So that's my biggest recommendation, is if you find your party getting in a situation when they're creating their characters and focusing on it so much, you go, bam, here's the Celestial Warlock or an invocation they can take that has healing. Take Paladin. They've got healing points they can go from. And that's all you'll probably need.
Yeah, lay on hands.
Yeah, lay on hands. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's not just going to be cleric. And I think there's a stereotype in everything that cleric is the one and only person that can do healing. And then it comes from some sort of god. So get that out of your head. That's what I really wanted to dive into and talk about. That's pretty much, it's a shorter topic, I think, today, but.
Yeah, I think for me, the last thing that I have, the most important thing for you healers out there, because this has happened to me, is to appreciate what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, as in like we kind of touched this before, but it's a very thankless role a lot of the times. And it can feel like you're not doing anything because, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, that everyone else is slinging these cool fireball spells, finger of death, all this intense stuff, doing lots of damage. And your next turn, you're plotting out, okay, so this guy's getting low on health. Let me drop a healing word on him, run over to this guy and check to make sure he's alive. And then I'll do resurrection next round. But I think if everything is going to plan, I mean, of course, tabletop RPGs and plans don't never really go well. But if everything is, no one's dying, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Then you're doing your job. If things are not as intense as they might be, you're doing a good job. You're there with the party. You likely won't get many final hits, but you're punching back. You're doing what you can do. You might become a punching bag if the intelligent enemies are there and know that there's a lot of times you might be targeted, but don't let it get to you.
Yeah.
Just keep slinging those hit points around, doing some work. And appreciate yourself, because a lot of other people might not. You might be the first person, like I said, with the Final Fantasy, the first person get yelled at if someone went down. Like, well, I'm 100 feet away. My cure wounds doesn't reach this person.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not my fault.
Yeah, let them know your capabilities beforehand, or keep them updated on just how many resources you've got. It's like, hey, I can help you guys about 2 more times, so start being a bit more careful here.
Yeah,
there's your RP.
My spell has this. I have to be able to see you, so don't get out of my sight. Don't cast darkness on yourself. I have to be able to see you to heal you. So just keep that aware.
Yeah, and that can be fun RP stuff. I know it always gets kind of silly when you're like, I have this many spell slots. What's a spell slot? Like that sort of stuff is really fun to me, but you can find a way to talk about it in game or out of game.
I think we talked about this in one of our spell casting episodes, but there was a cool way I saw a while back where the way they talked about spell slots was like the Mind Palace. And they're like, in this room of my Mind Palace is getting low. Like, that's kind of cute way to explain your spell slots.
It's that I've got boxes in my mind and these are all empty at this moment. Or, man, I'm fucking tired. I can't heal you anymore.
Yeah, that works. That works pretty well.
So don't die.
Dude, I'm knackered.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about it. If you guys are interested, we have social media.
We do.
It's at Dungeon Crawl Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We use Instagram kind of sometimes whenever we go live or when we are about to. We like to post little pictures there and whatnot. There's also a Discord, though. This is the most important thing. I have been chilling that out on my stream. When people jump in and I get like a sense that they're like kind of extra nerdy,
D&D
I'm like,
are
you into D? Because if they say I like your design because I'm a VTuber, I'll say, oh, you like D&D?
Nice.
And oftentimes they go, me? No, I totally don't play like 40 hours of tabletop RPGs a week.
Perfect.
If you see somebody popping in, they're either from this or the stream, because I chill that out as often as I want. Because we've got people that are sharing their homebrew campaigns, entire systems they're making, classes, characters.
There's some really cool stuff in there.
I'm so surprised and really happy with the amount of engagement that goes on.
The amount of talent that people have that are listening to this podcast and stuff.
Honestly.
I mean,
and people that say that they've been listening to us for a while, and for a while is a time frame I haven't realized that we've been
like
doing
a
this.
year and a half, something. Yeah, God,
genuinely. And if you've been hanging out and you're not in 200 servers on your Discord already, I understand there's a ton, but you need a new space for D&D because of the world we live in right now. It's hard to do it in person. Mm-hmm. Still, kind of. Go and jump in there. It's in a link tree down below. Also in the Linktree, we have...
Yeah, they might be running sorry to cut you off. Someone might be running a Cyberpunk Red one-shot coming up. So if you're interested in trying out a new system or trying out a system that you don't see people play often, then please hop in and let them know.
Come say hi, give us a little intro, tell us how long you've been playing tabletop RPGs, what your other interests are. A lot of conversation that goes on in that welcome channel, which is, again, really surprising me, and it's very, very heartwarming. So jump in there. As I was saying before, we do have a Patreon. We've had a couple supporters coming in and out. Again, they're rolling across the screen at the moment. If you feel like supporting us, it always helps. We very much appreciate it. The final thing, we do have email, thedungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com. For anything else you're looking for, if you're some sort of social media person or PR, you want to give us a sponsorship, come on, go ahead.
Please.
Don't be shy.
We appreciate you.
That's all I got.
I do want to shout out next week, as Rax said earlier, the Book of the Dead, unfortunately, is not released until the 27th for us. So unless anyone wants to send their physical copy out to us. So then we will be reviewing it not next week, but 2 weeks. So next week, we're going to be talking about the D&D Direct that is happening. If you want to watch it live, I won't be doing it live, but if you want to watch the D&D Direct, it's on the 21st at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So set your alarm clocks or watch the VOD after
9 a.m.
It's kind of 9 a.m.
I mean, that's
Pacific,
gonna be
so that'll be
10 or 11
7
for us?
here.
Wait, what? Pacific's that way.
You're right.
Yeah. I'm terrible at time sensitive.
So it'll be like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're on the West Coast, then it's pretty early for you.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the VOD will be available. People will be live tweeting like crazy, so you can always check it out later. But I'm excited, and I'm excited to see what they're announcing. They did just purchase D&D Beyond.
It fucking happened, dude.
It happened. So I doubt much will be happening with that for the next at least probably 6 months, 3 to 6. It takes time for them to get things going.
100% they're making a virtual tabletop.
Gotta be.
There's no way.
I'm so happy they bought this so that we didn't have D&D Beyond and what they're doing clashing. So now if you bought stuff in D&D Beyond, it's just going to be seamless transition. Maybe they should or hire the guy that made above VTT.
That's still my favorite virtual tabletop for quick and dirty, just getting everything going.
Yes, that's very quick.
Is awesome. Just Chrome extension, pop it in, you've got your access to your entire library.
I'm excited what they're going to announce. I assume they're going to announce their timeline for this year, maybe all the way through next year, probably not through next year, but I'm very interested to see what's
It's a very bombastic title, something about like the future of D&D or the direction of Dungeons and Dragons. So
yeah, let me see if I can pull up what they said here.
What date is it?
The 21st at 9 a.m.
It's middle of the week.
PT.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, the D&D Direct. It's illuminating 2022 and beyond. You see what word they use there? Beyond.
D&D Beyond. Literally and beyond.
So that's what they're announcing. Exclusive reveals for the world's greatest role-playing game. Pathfinder, no, D&D. Books, video games, entertainment, and more.
Okay.
This is one jam-packed show. I assume the entertainment might be touching on the movie that's coming out at some point, though I don't know if WotC has anything to do with it. I assume it's got D&D in the name.
We've been talking about that for as long as we're doing the podcast.
Yeah. So they're going to probably tell that it's on YouTube and Twitch, so you can watch it there. I am interested to see what's coming. So final thing it says here, you might even find a few surprises.
I don't know. I love directs. When Nintendo does them, I get super hyped. Even
especially that they announced that they bought D&D Beyond before this happened.
I wasn't expecting that at all anytime soon.
No,
that's really cool.
Me either. I was expecting if they were going to announce it, it'd come out at the Direct, but okay.
It's super interesting too. They addressed a frequently asked question like, hey, don't worry, your library's not going anywhere. I wouldn't have ever asked that question if they were purchasing D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
They're like, where's it going? What's happening? I'm like,
that's not what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
I'm more so worried, are we going to get physical? If we buy physical, do we get a discount? Do we get a code? Do we have to buy the whole book again?
Yeah.
Wonder if they're going to make I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff. This actually, if I just scroll down a little bit farther, let me show this to Braxton and everyone. If you go to their Twitter, they can see it is about the movie. Untitled D&D movie, directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly. So they're probably going to be talking about that at least.
But how isn't a D&D movie, if it's just the campaign setting, just a fantasy movie? Is it going to be people playing D&D, or is it just a fantasy setting like I mentioned prior? That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know. If I recall, the old one had the
great old one.
Had the framing of someone like the narrator was like the DM, I believe. Okay. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I was actually thinking the other day because of the Stranger Things announcement that Stranger Things is like D&D movie / show that D&D fans probably, because it's got. I mean, of course, the monsters are a little bit different.
It's just another Stranger Things movie.
That'd be kind of cool. No, but I don't know if you saw the Stranger Things announcement that the monster, and this is not a spoiler because I'm upset about this. They announced this everywhere. They even showed pictures of what he looks like. The enemy in the new Stranger Things season is Vecna.
Everyone would be very excited about that. Really?
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm very intrigued. I'm sad they posted pictures of him everywhere. Said, "Hey, here's Vecna." So I'm a little sad that we can't just be surprised about him. But
it's the best way to pull people in.
Yeah, I think it would have been cooler because one of the episode titles is called Hand of Vecna. I mean, imagine like, wait, is Vecna going to be in this one? And then boom, there he is. I don't know.
I didn't know they were pulling literally out of, I don't know if Vecna's just a D&D thing, but it's cool.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because D&D also posted about it. They said to avoid spoilers, this is all we can show of Vecna, and it's a eyeball in a hand, which is scary stuff. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what they're going to do there. I mean, like I said before, the monsters in Stranger Things, like they've had the Mind Flayer in there, Demogorgon. They're very different from their D&D counterparts.
Especially the Demogorgon.
They look very different as well, but they do similar. The Demogorgon doesn't do anything like the Demogorgon, but the Mind Flayer controls people, so it's similar-ish.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued.
Fancy.
Those are all the announcements. Make sure you rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
When you look at it, it's actually kind of impressive. We're like nearly 5 stars. We're like 4.8 with like 25 different reviews. Like that's not nothing. So thank you guys.
Yeah, the more you review, the more you type something out, it really does help with the podcast.
Yeah, it was really nice. I did an audition thing recently and was using podcast statistics for that in particular. It was for live streaming. So it was really nice to say like, hey, I've been doing this thing for 3 years and a few thousand people a month listen to it.
Crazy to think about.
Yeah, really fun. You scratch? All right. He's been Ryan.
He's been Braxton. Thanks for listening. We're the Dungeon Crawl. This is a cat. And we'll see you next time to waffle and chat about this D&D Direct.
Thanks for calling with us. Yeah, I have like kid and candy shop. I'm excited.
I know. I have no idea what's going to be announced, but I'm excited.
I live, breathe, and eat outside of D&D Beyond.
So it could be. We might come next week with sad eyes and very set faces.
I hope not. We'll see. I'm fun.
It's funny, every time that we say I'm now checked out of D&D, something brings me back.
Yeah.
And then I'm probably going to, I might be excited with these announcements, and then we read the books.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I'm excited for digital. I just want to tell me anything about D&D Beyond. I get stoked. I love that shit. I can't roll regular dice anymore. I've done terrible.
Yeah, you know what? They might have, no, it could have been cooler though, but maybe they announced the D&D Beyond acquisition before, so now at the D&D Direct, they release the picture of a VTT that they're making.
If that's something, I'm going to be fucking stoked.
Make my life easier if we do the live playthrough there too.
Yeah, poor above VTT dude. Hopefully they don't stop him from doing that.
Well, he did it for free, so
yeah.
I don't think he has any like donations or anything. So good for that guy. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for calling. It was my cat's birthday the other day. Tell my birthday.
Happy birthday, Cat. Type that in the comments below, please. Happy birthday, cats.
I got him treats. Don't worry.